Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Number 3030.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
I'm Kelsey.
I'm Kadra.
And this is a special crossover episode of A Trial by Podcast featuring Kadra from Perplexity, a mystery podcast. So hello, everybody. We have a special guest today. As you heard before the music cue, we have Kadra from Perplexity, a mystery podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. So I'm so excited to have her on the show. Kadra, can you give them like just a little bit of a rundown of what Perplexity is?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm so glad you enjoy the show. That's a huge compliment because I love what you do over here. So I tell perplexing tales every Wednesday, and I cover all things mysterious. So we have a lot of true crime over there, but there's also a lot of paranormal stories, weird and dark history, UFOs, all kinds of stuff like that. And I am the only host, so it's a single story format. I do have quite a bit of guests on there, though, as well, if that's more your speed.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to have you today. So what we are going to do today is cover two different stories of two people who have very mysteriously vanished, seemingly into thin air. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off. I'm going to tell the story of the disappearance of Brian Shaffer. And then Kadra here is going to tell the story of the disappearance of Niqui McCown.
Yes.
So I think with that being said, we'll jump right in.
Let's do it.
On a spring night in 2006, 27-year-old Brian Shaffer walked into a bar in Columbus, Ohio. Now, for any listeners that are new to my podcast or for any of Kadra's listeners, I am from Cleveland, Ohio. So I'm 2.5 hours north of Columbus, but a bunch of my cousins live in Columbus. I'm kind of familiar with the area. And in Ohio, this is a very infamous case. So I think in true crime in general, it is too. So a lot of people might be familiar with this story. But if you have not yet heard this story, this one is going to really perplex you, for lack of a better word there. So Brian Shaffer walks into this bar in Columbus, and after, he is never seen again. Around 1:55 a.m., he is seen on security footage chatting with two women near the entrance of the bar before heading back inside the bar. Minutes later, the bar closes, but Brian never came out. And strangely, cameras never captured his exit, as if he had vanished into thin air. Nearly 20 years later, his disappearance remains a mystery to this day. So in this episode, we are going to explore the events of that night, the investigation that followed, and the many theories, ranging from suspicious to supernatural, about how Brian could disappear literally without a trace. So let's start off by talking about who Brian was as a person. So Brian Randall Shaffer was a bright and driven young man with a very promising future. He was born in 1979 and he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio, and he was the eldest of two sons. He earned a microbiology degree from Ohio State University in 2003, and he began med school there in 2004. Friends described Brian as charismatic and funny with a love for Pearl Jam and dreams of a laid-back life, maybe starting a band and moving to a tropical island. So I really loved reading about who Brian was because he seemed like such a dynamic person. Like, he was hardworking. He was in med school. Like, he was going to be a doctor, but he also loved music. He was a part of a band, and like, he just wanted to work hard while he was young. And then as he got older, like, live this laid back lifestyle. And I feel like he was just like a happy medium type of person. And I really like that about him.
Yeah, he seems well-rounded.
Yes, absolutely. Like, he seems like he knows how to work hard and play hard. And I respect that.
Absolutely.
So by early 2006, Brian was in his second year of med school, and he was in a serious relationship at the time with a girl named Alexis Wagoner. They were getting very serious. He was likely planning to propose during their upcoming spring break trip to Miami. But life hadn't been easy for Brian at the time either. His mother, Renee, had recently passed away from a rare blood cancer. And though Brian kept his grief mostly to himself, those close to him saw the toll it took on him. Still, he pushed forward, holding on to hope for a bright future. And even though he was experiencing some of the most difficult pain anyone could experience in life, he was still trying to work through it and enjoy everything that he could.
Right. And it's hard when you're that young too. Like, at that age, it's all like hustle culture. You're working so hard towards something. So to be like that busy, be in medical school and be in pain, that must have been really, really difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I can't imagine going through grief where one of my friends, she's in medical school. She had a baby. She could only take 2 weeks off after having her baby, or she was going to fall behind and not graduate on time. And so she went back after 2 weeks. Like, medical school isn't like just being in a normal like undergrad program where you can just take a semester off and just jump right back in. And so I can't imagine like to work through that pain while doing all of this work must have been so hard. And that just shows you like what a resilient person he was.
Mm-hmm.
So on Friday, March 31st, 2006, spring break began at Ohio State. That night, Brian had dinner with his dad, Randy, to celebrate the end of exams. Randy thought Brian looked exhausted and hoped he'd stay in, but Brian was eager to unwind and stuck with his plans to go out with his friends. So around 9 p.m. that evening, he met his friend Clint Florence at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, which is the name of the bar. I can't tell you how much, and I hate this because this story is so sad, but the name of the bar being Ugly Tuna Saloona, whoever came up with that name is amazing, and I want to be friends with them.
I know. The name is outstanding work. You have to admit that.
It really is. It's just, I feel like it should have been a bar in SpongeBob or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So after a couple of drinks, Brian stepped outside to call his girlfriend Alexis, telling her he loved her and looked forward to their upcoming Miami trip. And this was the last time she'd ever hear from him, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But I'm so glad that he called her late at night and was like, I love you. I can't wait for our trip. And I'm glad that she has that to hold on to.
Yeah.
So Brian and Clint spent the night bar hopping downtown, taking a shot at each stop. And after midnight, they ran into Clint's friend, Meredith Reed, who gave them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna for a final round. This was going to be their last drink of the night. surveillance footage showed the three arriving at 1:15 a.m. So it is pretty late in the night by the time they get to this bar. Now, inside the packed bar, Brian eventually got separated from Clint and Meredith. And at around 1:55 a.m., he was briefly shown on camera footage chatting with two women right outside the entrance to the bar. And after a friendly goodbye to these two women, he turned back, went back inside the bar. And from that point, he's never seen again from what we know. We don't know. I'm sure obviously there were people inside the bar that did see him, but we don't know. No one has ever come forward like confirming that they've seen him after that point, and he's not seen on footage ever again. So at 2 a.m., the bar closes and Clint and Meredith waited outside, but Brian never came out. They called his phone, they searched the crowd, and eventually they assumed that he must have left on his own. Like, oh, it's late. He must have just gone home. So they leave and they head home for the night, not too concerned. But the next day, they're trying to get a hold of him and he's still not answering the phone. He's still silent. So this is when they start to grow concerned.
Right.
Now, when Brian's girlfriend, Alexis, couldn't reach him over the weekend, she was like immediately, she's alarmed at this point. This is unlike Brian. They're supposed to go on this trip together on Monday. So the fact that she can't get a hold of him, she's like, what the hell is going on? And he was supposed to get on that flight Monday morning, April 3rd, but he never shows up for it. So at that point, they officially report him missing because they know, like, if you're from Ohio, you know, you don't miss your flight to Miami, okay? Not in April. It's probably snowing here in April sometimes. It snowed the other day. So that is like, they knew something was wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, he probably talked to his girlfriend every single day. So I understand why she was immediately alarmed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, police focused first on the Ugly Tuna Saloona where Brian was last seen. The area was full of security cameras, yet none showed Brian exiting the bar after 2 a.m., despite footage of him entering and later chatting with those two women in front of the bar. And it was as if he had vanished inside of the bar itself. So investigators explored several theories. Maybe Brian had disguised himself, used a back exit, or slipped past the camera somehow. But the rear door of the bar led to a dark and hazardous construction site, an odd route for anyone to take, especially someone who's been drinking all night. It's just like, why would you leave out the back door? Unless there was a reason, and they couldn't come up with any sort of reason. It's not like, people saw Brian get into a fight with guys who were standing by the front door or something. Nothing like that happened.
Yeah.
Some cameras in that area weren't always recording, so slipping out unseen was possible. However, it wasn't likely because, again, the cameras on the entrance door, like those were running the whole time. And we have that footage and he's not seen on it.
Okay.
So police expanded their search, bringing in canine units and canvassing the area. They searched dumpsters, alleys, and even the sewer system. And anytime I hear that kind of stuff, it just breaks my heart. Like, imagine being his family and hearing that they're searching for your son or your brother in dumpsters and the sewer system. It literally gives me goosebumps to think about. I can't, and they had just lost, the family had just lost his mother too. And now they're having their son and their brother like being looked for in the sewer system. It's disgusting.
Losing someone in this way, like them going missing, is so hard too because time is of the essence. So you have to be like actively involved trying to find them, but you're like so overwhelmed with emotion, I'm sure, and adrenaline at the same time. Like that has to be so difficult.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Now, flyers go up and the community really rallied around this family, helping to support them in the search for Brian. But no physical evidence was ever found that led them in any which way direction. Brian's apartment remained untouched and his car was still there, suggesting he intended to come home from this bar. And as time passed, some wondered if Brian had left voluntarily, possibly to grieve his mother's recent death in solitude on a beach like he had dreamed of. But that theory didn't really explain why he'd miss his flight to Miami or cut off all contact with everyone. he had made future plans, including a likely proposal to Alexis. Everyone close to Brian was questioned. Most, including his father and Meredith Reed, took polygraphs. One person who refused was Clint Florence, Brian's friend that he was out with that night. Clint's refusal to take this polygraph raised suspicions, though he has never been named a suspect in the case. And his lawyer later said he had fully cooperated and had nothing to hide. I don't blame him for not taking a polygraph. I wouldn't take a polygraph. I do think sometimes if I hear about someone refusing a polygraph, like in the 80s or 90s before true crime was like on TV and stuff like that, that is a little bit more suspicious to me.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily know how bullshit polygraphs are.
I mean, they were super common back then and we all just like accepted them at that time.
Right. But this is in the 2000s. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't necessarily think that makes Clint suspicious in my mind, but I might be biased as someone who knows a lot about true crime and would never take a polygraph. So
sure.
Now, weeks turned into months, and Alexis called Brian's phone every single night trying to get a hold of him. And in September, it rang 3 times, offering a glimmer of hope because like his phone, when she had called it, it wouldn't ring. Like it would just go straight to his voicemail.
Yeah.
Then months later in September, it rings. So she's like, is his phone on? There was a moment of hope that maybe he really had just like ran off or something, or maybe he was okay. So phone records showed that it had pinged a tower in Hilliard, a suburb 14 miles away, but that lead eventually went cold. Nothing ever came of it.
Oh, how weird.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This story gained national attention. Like I said, this is a very infamous story in Ohio, but at the time it was infamous all over the country. Tips poured in with reported sightings of Brian in Michigan, Texas, even Sweden, but none led anywhere. At a Pearl Jam concert, lead singer Eddie Vedder mentioned Brian's case because, like I said, Brian was a huge fan of Pearl Jam. And so Eddie Vedder himself was like, hey, I need you guys to pay attention to this case, see if you recognize him, see if you know anything. But still, even with this call to action, no answers came. As his brother Derek said, quote, they did everything they could, end quote. But every lead ended in mystery. And I'm glad to hear that the family feels like the police did everything that they could. That is like Something in, a lot of true crime cases, which I think there's also like the bias of the types of cases we select to talk about, often are ones that an injustice has been done in the investigation itself. So I think we hear about those more often. So anytime I hear a case where it's like the police literally did everything they could, it brings me a little bit of joy. And I wish every case could be like that, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. At least with like the ones I've looked into, you unfortunately don't hear that very often. So that does give some reassurance.
Yeah, definitely. So with the physical search yielding no answers, theories began to swirl about what happened to Brian Shaffer. Over the years, several possibilities have been debated, each raising more questions than answers. Some believe that Brian suffered an accident near the bar, possibly falling into the construction site behind the Ugly Tuna. The area was full of debris and dangerous footing, especially for someone intoxicated. Maybe he was injured and his body was hidden by rubble or removed during cleanup. But thorough searches turned up nothing. They looked and they looked and they went into this construction site very early on. I mean, It wasn't the day after, but it was a few days after. They found no blood, no clothing, no trace of Brian at all. If an accident occurred, why wasn't anything found? So in my mind, I know there are some theories, like if you go on Reddit, people get really into this construction site theory. In my mind, this is ruled out. I think this was looked into by the police early enough in the case that I don't think this is a legitimate possibility, in my personal opinion. But, that doesn't mean it's impossible. Now, others speculate that Brian chose to vanish. He was grieving his mother. He was feeling the pressure of med school. And he had once talked about escaping to a tropical island. But also, like, who hasn't?
Yeah.
I feel like I talk about that every day, and I will never run away from my life. If I go missing, someone did it to me. I just want to put that on record here.
Yeah, same.
But some people say maybe he saw this opening and walked away. This is a huge theory online. And this is one, again, I just don't understand it. If you're just going to leave your life and run away, why are you going to do it at 2 a.m. in a crowded bar where there's security cameras everywhere? I mean, obviously, if this is what he did it rather successfully. But I think this would have been like a very difficult way to run away from your life.
Right.
I don't know.
Do we know how much he had been drinking that night? I know you said he had gone to a couple bars and had drinks.
Well, they had been bar hopping since about 9 p.m. was when he left his dad to go meet his friend. He didn't get to the Ugly Tuna until around 1:15. He had been out since about 9 o'clock was when he left his dad, and they were bar hopping. And at every bar, they were taking a shot. So I don't know if they were taking a shot along with a drink that they were sipping on.
Mm-hmm.
But I would assume that he was rather intoxicated. Like he was pretty drunk. And that's a great point, though. It's like, if you're going to carry out this plan that you have to run away from your life and do it by disappearing in this crowded bar where there's security footage everywhere, are you then going to get really drunk before you do that? Like, that seems like a difficult plan to carry out. He must have walked somewhere or taken public transportation or something. And supporters of this theory, they point out, like, technically it's possible. Like, he could have left through a gap in security footage. He could have changed clothes and just disappeared. He could have, made himself look different, because this security footage is extremely grainy. Mm-hmm. So I do think if he changed clothes and put on a hat or like some sort of disguise, you wouldn't be able to tell it was him. But like, where would he have all that stuff?
Well, and
he didn't have a bag walking in.
Like, you're not James Bond. Like, who would do that? It's just that's an odd theory. I don't buy that at all, personally.
I know. But I think in any unsolved disappearance, this is always a theory. It's like they ran away from their life.
Started a new life.
Right. And I get it. It's a hopeful theory. Mm-hmm. You hope that he's okay and that he chose to do this. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. And skeptics like myself like to know that he left his car, he left his glasses, he made no withdrawals from his bank account. And again, it's just, why would he want to run away? I understand his mom passed, but if anything, you would think maybe that would want to make him closer to his family. His brother Derek and his girlfriend Alexis both insist too that he never would have done that to them. Like, Alexis is like, he would never just up and leave me without saying anything. And Derek's like, we just lost our mom. He would never then make us lose our brother or make my dad lose a son right after losing his wife. It's just unbelievable to them. And I completely agree with them personally.
Right. Yeah. He just seems like a very reliable person.
He is. Yes, he is. And still, without evidence of foul play, some investigators believe he could still be alive, which I think there's a difference too between he could still be alive and he ran from his own life on purpose. You know what I mean? There are other things that could have happened here where he could still be alive. And of course, that's what you hope for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he ran away from his life. I don't think investigators believe that he ran away from his life on purpose. Now, many close to Brian believe that he met with foul play. That area, while it was like being redeveloped, it wasn't the safest area at the time. Maybe he was attacked or had an altercation that turned deadly. Suspicion lingered on Clint Florence, his friend that he was out with, who refused to take the polygraph because of him refusing that polygraph, basically. And he seemed to also distance himself from the group of friends after Brian's disappearance. Like I said, Clint's lawyers say that he's fully cooperated with the investigation, but Brian's brother believes that Clint knows more than he's shared. Others suggest that Brian may have encountered a stranger with bad intentions or gotten into some type of drunken altercation. But again, there's no evidence of this. There are no witnesses, and there's no clear sign of a struggle. To me, I think this is the most likely scenario. Now, I'm not saying Clint Florence, but unfortunately, I think that someone did this to Brian. I don't think that he is alive.
Yeah, I feel like in cases like this where there's so little information known, all you really can do is speculate. And I mean, statistically, more than likely, if he was met with foul play, it would be somebody that he knows.
That is true.
I really feel like it's one of two things. Like, either he was met with foul play and his body is discarded somewhere where he hasn't been found, or he got really drunk, maybe wandered off and hurt himself, fell somewhere and was never found. Those are kind of the two things I always go back and forth with. This case bothers me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And another theory that we unfortunately have to discuss, because this comes up anytime you hear of a college-aged male going missing or dying mysteriously, there are these internet sleuths that link Brian's case to the alleged smiley face killer.
Yes.
So basically if you haven't heard of the smiley face killer before, it's a theory about some network of killers who are targeting young men who vanish after nights out of drinking. So Brian fits this profile. He's young, he's male, he's in college, he's been drinking out with his friends all night. And his dad even consulted a psychic who believed that Brian was in water. And if you know anything about the smiley face killer theory, it's that all of these young men are found in bodies of water.
Yes.
Now, there was a river nearby, the Olentangy River, and it was searched for Brian, but nothing turned up. There was, not an article of clothing, not his phone, not him, nothing. And ultimately, police and the FBI have completely dismissed this theory, saying that it is completely baseless and has no link to Brian. I agree with that. But another theory is that maybe Brian had experienced a sudden health emergency or some sort of dissociative psychiatric episode. Maybe he had a head injury or amnesia that caused him to wander off. Hospitals were notified of his disappearance, but no John Does matching him were ever found. Now, this is, I think, after a night out of drinking, sometimes this is the type of theory in a missing persons case that I dismiss easily. But after a night out of drinking, this actually happened to one of my friends before, where he went out to a rave and got lost from his friends, didn't have his keys, which good because he shouldn't have been driving anyway, but fell asleep on a bench in a parking garage in winter in Cleveland. And so someone found him, couldn't wake him up, and they called 911, and he woke up in the hospital as a John Doe.
Wow.
And I was not there this evening, but, a bunch of friends were calling him all night, and no one knew where he was. This is something that I think it sounds like, it's a true crime story, but this is something that happens often. And so that is one of the first steps police take when someone is reported missing, is to notify all the hospital, check with the hospitals. Do you have a person like a John Doe or a Jane Doe matching this description? So that was done, and no hospital had Brian Shaffer in one of their beds. So again, I think if this were the case, if it was some sort of psychiatric episode, or he hit his head, or he had amnesia, or he passed out somewhere, I don't think that he survived it. I think it's unlikely that he survived it.
Yeah.
Some also floated the idea of suicide, but friends and family strongly disagree. He was making plans for the future, and he showed no signs of depression. Now, many of us know that doesn't necessarily mean that someone wouldn't take their own life. But Sergeant Hurst also doubts this theory, noting that most people who take their own life leave some trace, or they want to be found after. And I also think, again, if you're going to take your own life, this would be a very unique and rare and odd way to do it. Why would you want your family and friends wondering for the rest of their lives what happened to you?
Right.
Yeah. Now, Columbus police have never really publicly committed to one explanation of what they think happened to Brian. They've said that they have 3 theories, but they won't share them. They're keeping it close to the chest, which I understand. Now, Detective Andre Edwards, who studied the footage frame by frame, is certain that Brian did not leave via the main entrance, leaving only the back service door, or an extremely unlikely scenario where he never left the bar at all. There was no place to hide his body inside this bar. That's one of the theories that people float a lot, is like, maybe he is still inside the bar. Police say, and I haven't seen a lot of pictures of the inside of this bar. I have never been there. I actually believe it is no longer, it doesn't exist anymore. It's no longer the Ugly Tuna. But police say, absolutely not. This bar has been swept. There is nowhere that he could be hidden inside. And this whole thing only deepens the mystery. If he did not leave out that back entrance, the other theory is maybe someone took him out of that back entrance in something.
Right.
But of course, there's no camera footage, so we don't know. Now, Brian Shaffer's disappearance remains one of the most haunting modern missing persons cases. No suspects, no evidence, and no answers. Just a man who vanished without a trace. And for Brian's loved ones, the years after his disappearance have been marked by heartbreak, frustration, and unanswered questions. His father, Randy Shaffer, threw himself into the search, handing out flyers, scouring remote areas, and chasing every single lead.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom: The Dark Ages. Available May 15th on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Pre-order now.
Rated M for mature.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
5 immersive worlds, 1 amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe opens May 22nd at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
In 2008, tragedy struck again when Randy died in a freak accident, killed by a falling tree branch during a windstorm. He passed away, never knowing what happened to his son.
Oh my
And not
God.
long after, someone posted a message on Randy's online memorial that said, "To Dad, love Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands." And I just want to say, fuck that person. I don't know if you swear on your podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Sorry. I swear when I get angry, and fuck the person who did that. That's horrific. It's not Brian. I'm sorry. It's not Brian who did it. And that is disgusting. Brian's brother, Derek, lost his mother. Months later, his brother went missing mysteriously. Couple years later, his dad dies in a freak accident where a tree branch fell on him during a windstorm. That's horrific. His whole family has died in a few years, and it is just him left. And you're going to leave a comment on his dad's memorial site and say, "Oh, it's from Brian, your brother that has been missing for years, and you have no idea what happened to him." Like, I know that person is experiencing the worst karma right now, and that brings me fulfillment.
Yeah.
That helps me sleep at night. But who would do something like that? I don't understand it. And by the way, this comment was traced to a public computer in Ohio. Like,
wow.
They traced the IP address, and this comment was made from a public computer in Ohio. So someone literally went out of their way to go to I don't know if it was a library for sure, but go to a library or somewhere that has like some sort of public computer lab to leave this comment.
Like, sounds like a complete asshole troll. Like, what a loser.
Exactly. How hateful and spiteful are you that you're going to take up your afternoon to torture someone who's been going through literally some of the worst tragedies of all time? I don't get it. So let's talk about Derek a little bit. So Derek was Brian's younger brother, and he was deeply involved early on in the investigation and the search for Brian. But over the years, he has kind of stepped back, likely just worn down by years of silence and the overall just like coldness of the case. He is adamant that Brian would not have vanished by choice, saying, quote, "He wasn't into drugs. I don't think he would take off and never contact us again," end quote. He fears something bad happened to him and that he will never know. That's his worst fear, is he will never know what happened to his brother. He's also voiced frustration toward Clint Florence for staying silent about what he knows, saying, quote, "If Clint knew something, I hope he would have shared it. I deserve to know," end quote. And I stand by that. I don't know. And I honestly don't have a strong opinion whether or not Clint knows more than he's saying.
Right.
But if he does, I hope he's experiencing that same karma that this person who left the comment is. Because again, why are we torturing this poor kid? I mean, he's an adult, but this poor guy.
The family.
I can't even imagine what this guy has gone through.
I mean, it's hard because we really don't have enough information. So we have to kind of speculate. And again, statistically, it's likely someone that was the closest to him that met him with foul play. And this is really the only person we can look at. So you have to look at him hard and criticize him a little bit. And I mean, I understand why people don't talk to the police or don't really come forward to the media. That's like a very scary and sometimes dangerous thing to do. But you would think, like, with him being so close to him, and if you don't have anything to hide, that you would like be cooperative. You know, I can see it from either side, but yeah.
And to be fair, he did talk to the police. Like, he was interviewed, but he just refused to give that polygraph. And I think he cooperated at least early on in the investigation as far as it goes to talking to police. Now, I don't have any transcripts about how he answered their questions or what he said. So, you know, maybe he sat and talked with them, but wasn't helpful, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But it is something that, if anyone knows anything and could be helpful, it's Clint.
Mhm.
And so if he's no longer answering questions, I question what the motivation for that would be at this point. But the other person that has been deeply affected by Brian's disappearance is his girlfriend, Alexis Wagner, and she really held on to hope for years. She helped with searches and kept calling his phone. Like I said, for a long time, she called his phone every single night just to hear his voicemail, which literally makes me want to cry. That's so sad.
Ugh.
As time passed, she did come to terms with the likelihood that Brian was no longer alive. She later admitted that imagining he'd been harmed by an outside force was easier emotionally than believing he abandoned her. In 2008, as she graduated med school alone, Alexis said she still thought of Brian often and still longed for closure. Now, nearly 2 decades later, those who loved Brian continue to live with the ache of not knowing, caught between grief and unanswered hope. Because I've never been in this type of situation, but I imagine it's a very confusing and difficult grieving process when you're not even sure you should be grieving. You're not even, no matter how somewhat certain you feel, you can't be 100% certain until he is found or someone comes forward saying what happened.
Yeah.
And as of 2025, Brian's still missing. And Brian, if you see pictures of him, and I urge everyone to go look at pictures of him, especially if you live in Ohio in the Columbus area. I think if you saw him and you've seen pictures and you can recognize, you'll know him. He's 6'2", okay? He's a big guy. He has brown hair, he has hazel eyes, and he would now be 46 years old. Columbus police still receive tips about the case, but none have led to answers. And in 2021, an age-progressed image was released, but it sparked no breakthroughs. So I will be posting on our Instagram page at A Trial by Podcast the pictures of Brian and then also the age-progressed image, because I really, really want people to look at those, especially if you live in Ohio.
Yes, absolutely.
These false sightings have come and gone, including a 2019 photo of a homeless man in Tijuana that people were like, this is Brian Shaffer. This was a big thing on the internet. This was ruled out by the FBI. That was not Brian Shaffer. People still like to argue it was. It was not. And Brian's case remains one of the most baffling disappearances, puzzling both investigators and true crime followers like ourselves. How does someone vanish from a crowded, camera-covered bar without a single trace? And that, unfortunately, is the tragic story of Brian Shaffer, and there is no conclusion. So I hope that one day we will have one. And if that is the case, come back to the podcast because we will be covering it. But right now, it doesn't seem like there are any great leads at all.
Yeah. Ugh. The case bothers me so much. I've wanted to talk about it for a while, so I'm glad that you brought it to us. And yeah, it would be so hard to grieve that person. There's so many unanswered questions. It's
absolutely,
we cover so many different topics on perplexity, and I think the disappearance cases probably bother me the most.
Oh, 100%.
Because it's terrifying to think about. Like, when you hear stories like this, you kind of put yourself in that situation. Like, what if I just randomly vanished? And I mean, that's a very scary thought to a lot of people, including myself. And yeah, I mean, this guy had so much ahead. And then the fact that he was about to go on this trip to Miami, like, you hear things like that in missing persons cases, and it always really bothers me. Like, he was so excited about this, called his girlfriend right before, like, can't wait to see you, babe, so excited. And then just boop, never to be seen again. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel like foul play is the most likely scenario.
I agree. And I just think the fact that he disappeared in this bar, what really pisses me off is I feel like someone knows something.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has to know And not even just the person who did this to him. I feel like other people have to know something, even if they don't know the everything about what happened to Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Someone must have seen something or no. And why are you not coming for it? It's just, I just can't imagine, no matter how much of a shitty person you are, I can't imagine keeping a secret like that. I don't get it.
No, it would eat me up. Well, thank you for the story.
Of course. I'm excited to hear your story because this is actually a case I have not heard of, those are my favorite cases to hear and to cover because, especially in a disappearance case, they obviously need more attention because I've never heard her name before. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this case either. Sometimes it's referred to online as the case of the vanishing bride, but it is a woman who was just weeks away from her wedding and, similar to Brian's story, just vanished pretty much without a trace. And there is a strong suspicion of foul play. So,
oh my gosh, heartbreaking already.
Yeah. So this story is at first a little bit hard to find online. So I just want to preface this by saying if you look up Niqui McCown, you want to spell it Niqui, and it is pronounced Niqui, not Niqui. She sometimes is referred to as Marilyn McCown, but her whole family calls her Nick or Niqui, so I'm going to refer to her as Niqui. So Marilyn Renee Nicole McCown went by Niqui and was 28 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was 5'3", African American with brown eyes and brown hair. She had multiple small scars on her head, one over her left eye, one on the right side of her face, and one on the top of her head. She weighed 115 pounds at the time she disappeared. She was last seen wearing a dark-colored swimsuit top, blue biker shorts, and sandals, and she was living in Richmond, Indiana, working as a prison guard. She was also a total badass. She was a member of the hostage negotiation team, and she was taking criminal justice classes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, she had big dreams. One day she was hoping to join the FBI or become a U.S. Marshal.
Oh my gosh.
And she disappeared on July 22nd, 2001, under very mysterious circumstances. So a little bit about Niqui. She was born January 6th, 1973. She was the baby in a very large family. She had 9 other siblings.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
That's crazy.
There was always something going on over there.
Yeah, my sister-in-law's mom is, I think, the youngest of 13. And going to their family functions, it's like chaos, but like the most joyous, happy chaos ever. Like having a huge family like that is, I don't have a huge family like that. It seems awesome.
Yes, they had a very beautiful, large, close-knit family. And she and her sister Michelle were very close. They were also very close in age. So you'll be hearing about Michelle throughout the story. Michelle was one of the people who lovingly referred to Niqui as Nick. And eventually, when Niqui was about 18, she started dating a man named Stephen Johnson. They got really close. Their relationship got serious really quickly, but obviously they're very young. Niqui gave birth to their daughter Peyton when she was just 19, and at this point it's 1992. Niqui was also known to be a very bubbly person. She was always smiling, laughing. She just brought like this great warm energy. She just felt good to be around. And she was very active too. She was like that friend that was like, hey, I heard this event's in town. It sounds really fun. Do you want to go out and do it? Like she was always finding fun things to do.
Mm-hmm.
She was also a great mother, but Niqui did have some trouble in her marriage with Stephen. I mean, they were extremely young when they got married. And her and Stephen did end up splitting when Peyton was 3 years old. It was also later discovered, and Stephen admitted to this, that he had not treated Niqui very well. He had been abusive and he had cheated on her.
Hate him already.
Right? Nobody likes a cheater. Niqui wanted better for herself and Peyton, her daughter, so they chose to end things. Now, they did end things amicably. Now, this is according to Stephen, so I don't really know how much I believe, but they did, like other people do, corroborate this. They co-parented very well, and throughout the next just about 10 years, there are no other known issues with Stephen and Niqui. It seems like she moved on, they co-parented for Peyton, and everything was fine.
Okay, that's good to hear at least. I'm glad that she was able to safely get out of a bad situation, at least at the time, it sounds like.
Right. Yeah, I really don't know what the abuse entailed, but he did admit in the sources I read that he was abusive in some way. So years later, 1997, Niqui starts dating someone new. Well, new to us, not new to her. So this is Bobby Webster, and this is an old flame. They actually had dated in high school for a couple years. They broke up. He was kind of like the one that got away for Niqui. He moved to California for a while. They lost touch, but then he came back to the Richmond area and they reconnected several years after her and Stephen had split.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
Okay, interesting.
So Bobby was very outgoing. They seemed to really be in love, and they had a close relationship with each of their families. They seemed to have a really great relationship for several years before getting engaged in 2001. And this is the same year that she disappeared. They set a wedding date for August 18th, and Niqui very much seemed to be looking forward to the wedding. She had been working really hard on it. And just a few weeks before the wedding, on a Sunday, July 22nd, Niqui and Bobby went to church together. They took their 9-year-old daughter, Peyton, with them. And it just seemed like a typical Sunday. Niqui would often do laundry on Sundays as well. She would go to the laundromat in town. So she dropped her daughter off at Peyton's grandmother, Niqui's mother's home. And Bobby went to the tuxedo shop to go try on a suit because they're about to get married.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby and Niqui had made plans that they were going to meet up later that afternoon. And Niqui's sister, Michelle, had remained close with her. And that evening, Michelle had gone to visit their other sister, Tammy. Michelle is interviewed a lot throughout all of the sources that I found. And so Michelle recounts this whole experience where she realized something was wrong and they didn't know where Niqui was. So Michelle says that when she got to her other sister Tammy's house, Tammy's kind of pacing and seems very visibly worried. And so the first thing that Tammy says to Michelle when she walks in is, "Have you seen Niqui?" And Michelle's like, "No, what do you mean?" And she said that Bobby had called her and he hasn't heard from her or seen her, so he's calling all these people to see if they know where she is. Niqui was also supposed to return home to finish their wedding invitations. So after talking to Niqui's sister, Bobby continued to call a bunch of Niqui's friends and eventually her family, her parents. None of them knew where she was. None of them had heard from her in the last couple of hours. They're trying to figure all this out, and together, Bobby and the two sisters, Tammy and Michelle, go to Niqui's parents' house. Niqui's mother, Barbara, had seen Niqui earlier that day because she dropped Peyton off at her house. She was watching her while she went to the laundromat. At around 2 p.m., Niqui came back from the laundromat and was talking to her mother, Barbara. But she was back earlier than normal.
Okay, and this was after everyone was already looking for her.
No.
Because she had been out for too long. Okay.
It's kind of confusing. They had to kind of like retrace some things. So they're calling all these people and eventually they realize that
her. Okay.
Yeah.
So they started looking for her. Then they're getting this information afterwards about where she was before, like when the last time she was seen. Okay. Heard.
Yeah. The timeline's a little confusing with how I explain it, but it sounds like they started looking for her in the evening.
Okay.
And she was last seen to them around like 2:30. Barbara would have been the last person to see her within the family.
Okay. Makes sense.
So Niqui had come back around 2 o'clock to Barbara, her mother's house. And Barbara's like, what's wrong? Because Niqui's visibly worried. She's walking back and forth and she's saying, he won't leave me alone. And so Barbara's like, what are you talking about? So Niqui explained that while she was at the laundromat, there were these 2 Hispanic men that were harassing her. They wouldn't leave her alone. I couldn't get much information about what exactly they said, but it's implied that they were making her feel uncomfortable and unsafe.
And do we know if she knew these men or if they were random people she'd never seen before this occasion?
That's a good point. So from all the sources I read, they make it sound like these are not people she knew. And according to Barbara, they were never named, but I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
I'm assuming, though, from everything I read, that these are like random strangers.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like we would know if she knew them. It would have been clear to Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Niqui's explaining all of this to her mom. She was so scared that she had left all of her laundry at the laundromat and fled back to their house and was telling her what was going on and was like, I want to go back and get my laundry, but I'm like scared to go back.
I hate this already.
Yeah.
I hate this already.
This part really upsets me. So
this is like, because I feel like every woman listening to this, you know that feeling where you're like, oh, I have to get out of here. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I have to get away from these people.
Right.
Oh.
And there are so many twists. This story is just crazy. Like every time you think it's going to go one way, it goes another way. But yeah, so this part really, really bothers me. Basically, Niqui tells all this to her mother, but she has gone to this laundromat over and over and over. And 99% of the time, everything's fine. And Barbara is just trying to be a reassuring mother. So I want to be very clear. I do not blame her at all for what I'm about to say. But Barbara basically was reassuring Niqui and was like, it's okay. I'm sure it's fine. It's a public place. Go back and get your laundry and then come straight back here. Everything's fine.
That breaks my heart for her.
I know.
That breaks my heart for her. But I get it. You think, like I said, every woman kind of knows that feeling where you're so uncomfortable. You're like, I have to get out of here. But you think, oh, I'm being paranoid, but I'm going to do it just in case. And you tell the story later and laugh about it. You're like, oh yeah, I was so whatever. It was because statistically it's probably fine. And so like, I totally get why she encouraged her to go back.
Yeah. So she did leave, but as we know, she never came back. She was supposed to be home by 4:30 p.m. She was basically going to stop back at Barbara's house on the way home, pick up Peyton, and then come back to the house. So when the evening rolled around and she hadn't shown up to pick up her daughter, obviously Barbara's really worried, and her and Bobby were supposed to meet up later that night, work on wedding invitations, so he's really worried, and that's when they're like calling everybody. So Niqui's father then asked Bobby to file a police report later that same day. So at this point, it's pretty late at night, is my understanding. And some people have different opinions on this. Bobby did not want to file the missing persons report that soon And Niqui's father was basically like, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it myself. So Bobby did file the report somewhere between 2 and 8 a.m., depending on the sources that you read.
Okay. I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, different opinions.
Maybe there's a reason that we don't know, but it seems weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, you could be devil's advocate and say, like, you know, he's kind of in shock. He's maybe dismissing the possibility, like, no way. Like, of course she's going to come back. This is crazy. True. Let's give her a little longer. Let's give it 24 hours. I don't know. We will talk about Bobby, though, in a little bit.
Okay.
So, as is common with missing persons cases, the family had been searching from the very beginning, but it took police a little longer. The family was told, I want to emphasize that, told they had to wait 72 hours to file a report.
That always pisses me off.
We just talked about this in my last episode, but I want to say this again. You do not have to wait to file a missing persons report. There is no discrepancy on how long the person has been missing. If the police try to tell you that you have to wait 24 hours or whatever, that is not true. File the report, period. And they did.
Snap for Kadra.
They did. They pushed, they filed it between 2 and 8 a.m., but the police didn't get involved until 72 hours after she had been missing. So, police speculated that Niqui had gotten cold feet about the wedding.
Can I pause you for 1 second? I want to go back to what you were just saying about they waited 72 hours. This is what I'll never understand is, okay, let's say this is someone, they went out drinking with their friends and they hadn't come home and it's the next morning. I get it. You assume maybe they drank too much and they're sleeping on a friend's couch and whatever. But why are they not taking the circumstances of what happened here into account? Because if you hear that Niqui was telling her mom that these guys were scaring her so much, she left the laundromat and left her clothes there, and then she went back and then she's not seen again, why would you wait 72 hours?
Right.
And that makes me think they didn't even care enough to ask questions about, you know, who last saw her and stuff before deciding that they were going to wait 72 hours.
Right. Yeah. I would also like to emphasize again that Niqui is a African-American woman, and there are, unfortunately, a lot of stories where a Black woman goes missing and it is not taken seriously enough. And this seems to be, in my opinion, one of those stories.
Yeah, it's despicable, honestly, these officers. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so according to Niqui's family, and I mean, I totally agree, it really seems like police were not taking this seriously, especially in the first couple of days. But Niqui's family knew this was serious, not only because of the circumstances of her disappearance, but because Niqui was medically ill. She had Graves' disease. She had to take medication regularly, and the medication had been left at home. So when police started their investigation, they were able to find a grainy video of Niqui at a convenience store the day that she disappeared at 3:10 p.m. And this store was called the Village Pantry. It was right by the laundromat. She's seen walking in, getting change, and leaving unharmed. Everything seems fine. This is the last known sighting of Niqui McCown. She went to this store a lot to get change for the laundromat. So it seems like that's what she was doing. She maybe had like another load to finish up or something and, you know, went there. She did go back to the laundromat based on footage from the Village Pantry. Like you can see her walking out and going back into the laundromat. But there's no cameras in the laundromat. So we don't know what happened after that.
That's unfortunate. Guys, if you have a small business, can you put some security cameras up? I know it's a little bit pricey probably, but can you just put some security cameras up? Because you just never know. And or maybe someone's going to rob your place or like it'll be helpful to you too.
And I couldn't find the footage anywhere of her in the Village Pantry, but there is like a screen grab that you can find online. So I'll put that in the YouTube video and on the Instagram page. It is in the message I sent you as well, Kelsey. Okay, so no sign of Niqui was found around the laundromat. And this part is really confusing to me. So I got a lot of different reports on this. Some sources I read said that the creepy men at the laundromat were never located. And other sources I read said that police looked into these men. And according to one investigator, like there's a quote from them, so I tend to believe this is what actually happened. It says, quote, "The people that we talked to that were around the laundromat indicated they actually were not causing any problems," end quote. And that was that.
You're fucking kidding me. You're kidding me.
You never hear anything else about these men again.
They're just like, well, someone said, oh no, nothing happened. And we just took it at face value and okay, perfect.
Seemingly from what I could find, yes. And you don't know who these men are. They are never named. We don't know anything else about them.
Sounds like you are working so hard to find out what happened to this woman.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm, by the way.
So let's talk about Bobby. Niqui and Bobby's apartment was searched. There were no signs of foul play. As far as suspects go, naturally, we have to always look at the husband. As Kelsey likes to say, the husband did it.
Yes.
Or in this case, maybe the fiancé. So a few weeks after Niqui disappeared, Bobby did do some things that people could label suspicious. He did call off the wedding altogether instead of postponing it. He did ask for a refund on all of the deposits, and he tried to return his wedding band. He was also inquiring about some of Niqui's student loan money, which he had not paid for. Her job had paid for this. He also, some people find this weird. So when Niqui went missing, for whatever reason, she was driving Bobby's car, and Bobby was driving Niqui's car. And when she had gone missing, all these people are like out searching, and Bobby was taking Niqui's car to go get it washed. And they were like, why are you taking...
Oh, hell no.
Why are you washing her car? Like, come out. What are you doing? But Bobby maintains that he had made a promise to Niqui. Apparently, the reason they had switched cars is because he was going to get her car cleaned for her and wash it. And so he was like, well, I made a promise to her and I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to get this car cleaned, and it's going to be clean when she comes back.
I don't like that explanation. I don't. If she's been gone long enough that everybody's searching for her, like she has gone missing, and let's say it's all a misunderstanding, she comes back, she's not going to get mad that you didn't get the car wash. If anything, I would be pissed. I'd be like, why weren't you out searching for me? Why are you worried about washing the car?
Right.
I mean, I don't know I haven't heard this story before, so I don't know if maybe he's cleared and so I'm sorry if that's the case, but like at this point, I don't like it.
No, I like the real-time emotions, because I'm sure a lot of people listening aren't familiar with this either, and they probably feel the same way. I certainly did as I was going through. So okay. we are in alignment at this point.
Okay.
So, okay. Bobby maintains he did not cancel the wedding. He was postponing it. He also maintains that he did not have the financial means to properly get all these resources to search for her. So he was trying to get money for her search.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
He also said he used some of this money to purchase a cell phone. I don't know any other information about that.
Okay.
So Michelle, Niqui's sister that she was super close with, also claims there were people who witnessed Bobby physically abusing Niqui.
Psst. Hey besties, listen up. I have a secret to tell you. LinkedIn now has improved the job search experience for nurses. Search by your specialty, the shifts you want to work, and the salary that you want to make. With so many employers hiring on LinkedIn, finding the perfect job is even more simplified. So don't spend months searching. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and find out why in the past year, more than 1.5 million nurses have used LinkedIn to search for their next role. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The Four Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The Four Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Michelle had seen Bobby throwing things. He seemed to have some anger issues. And Bobby maintains that the day Niqui disappeared, he had gone to get his tuxedo at the tuxedo shop, gone to his grandmother's house, and then went home. Now, we're going to talk about polygraphs. I feel like I don't have to say this, but you guys know how I feel about polygraphs. People who are listening from a trial by, I feel the same way that Kelsey feels about polygraphs, okay? But he did fail a polygraph. Make of that what you will. Though Bobby and his lawyer were never allowed to see the results. So according to police, he failed the polygraph, but they can't confirm that. Bobby was a person of interest in the case. He was never labeled a suspect. There was one report that a man and a woman were seen carrying a woman in a field by the laundromat. And this would match the timeline of when Niqui was last seen. The description of the man and the woman also matches the description of Bobby and a woman named April. April is Bobby's ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
April and Niqui did not get along. April strongly disliked Niqui. But apparently, April was out of town at this time, and it seems like police were able to corroborate this. And in 2021, Bobby died from natural causes.
Oh my God, no.
Niqui's family has also come to believe that Bobby was not involved in Niqui's disappearance, which may sound crazy at this point in the story, but stay with me.
That makes me feel better, though.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the case. I hope the man that she loved and wanted to marry did not do this to her.
Bobby's car, which Niqui had been driving when she disappeared, was found November 5th, 2001. So this was several months after she was last seen. It was found in the woods in Ohio, the Meadows of Catalpa in Dayton, Ohio, and the Meadows of Catalpa is an apartment complex. This is also where her first husband, Stephen Johnson, lived. This area had also been searched previously, so that's interesting.
Okay, I'd like to apologize to Bobby and the family and retract my statements previously made. I'm sorry.
So this was over 45 minutes from Niqui's home. And remember, her and Stephen were co-parenting. So sometimes she would bring Peyton up here, but Peyton was at the grandma's house. So there was no known reason for her car to be there. It's not like she had dropped Peyton off there, you know? There were no signs of foul play in the car. And the sources I read said there were no fingerprints found in or around the car. That's how they word it.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means it was cleaned or if they found no other fingerprints besides Niqui's. But the battery of the car was missing. There was a popped out door lock. The ignition had been tampered with and the stereo system was missing. The car had been there for months. So we don't know if that happened, you know, afterwards, some teenagers in the area or something, you know what I mean? But it's still suspicious. Okay, this part upsets me. Niqui's folded laundry was also found in the car. So it's just like...
That is heartbreaking. I don't know why that's so heartbreaking. But it's just obvious that is when this happened. And it's exactly as the family probably expected when they were looking for her.
Yeah. So Stephen, the first husband, was ruled out as a suspect. Nothing could be tied to him. He also had an alibi, was very cooperative, and passed a polygraph. Eventually, when looking through phone records, it was found Niqui had called a coworker that day, a woman named Darlene, and Darlene also lived in Dayton, where her car was found. They had been talking about hair and makeup products, according to Darlene. The coworker said, yeah, you can come up to Dayton and purchase them. They're at the store here. She was wanting like special hair and makeup products for her wedding.
Okay.
Darlene also lived 1 mile from the apartment complex where the car was found. So maybe this is why Niqui had driven up there.
You are taking me on a roller coaster right now because I'm like, it was Bobby. Then I'm like, no, it was Steven. Now, is it Darlene? I don't know.
This is crazy. I told you, there are twists.
It is crazy. And I can't imagine, like, for us, it's a story, but I imagine being the family and being on that roller coaster. That's, oh my God.
Right. That's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So buckle the fuck up because this is where it gets really insane. So now we're going to talk about someone we have not talked about at all yet. So this is a man named Tommy Swint. Tommy Swint was a person of interest in Niqui McCown's disappearance. He was a coworker of Niqui's. They both worked at the prison together. They were good friends. And he had a long-standing history of inappropriate behavior with women, including Niqui. Swint was a correctional officer at the same prison. He had also been dishonorably discharged from the military. He was a husband and a father, but he wasn't only a husband, he was also a boyfriend to Darlene, the coworker that Niqui had been on the phone with that day.
Okay.
Darlene also has never once spoken to Niqui's family since she disappeared. And a lot of Niqui's family finds that really weird. Apparently she wasn't involved at all in the investigation, wasn't helping with searches, and she just would never talk to them when they would try to talk to her.
Okay.
So some people speculate, allegedly, that Darlene lured Niqui up to Dayton so that Tommy could do whatever to her, because turns out Tommy is a very disgusting, dangerous person. And this I can 100%, without a doubt, not speculate about. So let's talk about Tommy Swint. Niqui and Tommy Swint had gone on one date around when they first started being friends, but Niqui was like, yeah, I don't feel this vibe. I see you as more of a friend. And it had stayed that way. But it seems like this ate away at Tommy. He didn't like women telling him no.
He didn't like rejection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle would tell Dateline NBC of a time that she was going to Niqui's house when she heard screaming. She entered the house and found Niqui with her feet up, pushing against Tommy's chest, trying to push him off of her, screaming, trigger warning, "Help me, he's trying to rape me." Swint tried to play it off like he was just joking, and even started chasing the two women around the house, laughing. Niqui said, "Don't worry about it." And the two of them just kind of laughed it off at the time. This is how Michelle tells the story. Apparently, they continued to be friends, but I think, again, this is in my opinion, I feel like at this point, Niqui was probably super scared of Tommy and just tried to stay on his good side. Does that make sense?
And they work together. So it's like she's trying to not make this a huge thing to where she's going to go into work every day and be uncomfortable and tormented by this guy.
Yeah. And it's also hard because remember, Niqui and Michelle are only a year and a half apart. And the way Michelle tells it is she knew Tommy Swint since she was a child. So it sounds like they knew this guy for a very long time. So imagine this is a person you grow up with. You don't want to think that they are this evil, dangerous person. But Michelle said that Michelle never liked when Niqui would hang out with Tommy. She said that he always creeped her out.
Oh my God.
He was known to make inappropriate comments about women. He would also make inappropriate comments to Niqui. One time he asked her to have a threesome with him. And when she refused, he slashed her tires.
This little, oh my God, this is just the kind of guy, we all know a guy like, maybe not to this level, because I have a feeling it sounds like he's going to get extremely violent, but we all know that guy that just can't take no for an answer, and poor me, and it's total like incel behavior, and it
You can look at his picture.
Honestly.
He's the bald black man with the glasses I sent you a picture of. He's like these beady little eyes. Oh my gosh, I can't stand this guy.
I'm gonna pull it up.
Yes. When Swint was interviewed by police, he did not have a concrete alibi either, and he was very uncooperative. He also had a known history of sexually harassing other women in the workplace, which brought me to the question of why the fuck did he still work there then?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because they don't care. That's why. Oh my God.
So Swint did become a prime suspect in Niqui's disappearance in 2010. So it took some time, but he became a prime suspect after evidence linked him to another murder. This was for the 1991 murder of another woman in Dayton, Ohio, and this is 37-year-old Tina Marie Ivory. There's a picture of her in the Instagram. She was a sex worker in Dayton. She had previously dated Tommy Swint. DNA and fingerprints linked him to the crime. She had been dumped along the side of the road in a trash pile, barely clothed, and had been beaten to death and strangled.
And I'm sorry, was this before or after Niqui disappeared?
This would have been 10 years before she disappeared.
Okay. And he wasn't in prison for this?
No, because it was unsolved. So she gets...
Even though there was DNA and fingerprints?
The DNA and fingerprints wasn't linked to him until 2010.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. That's
no,
where I
it's
got
okay.
lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 1991, Tina Marie Ivory is murdered. 2001, Niqui McCown disappears. 2010, his DNA and fingerprints are linked. They are on Tina Marie Ivory's body.
Okay.
She had been dumped along the side of the road in a trash pile and just discarded like she was nothing. However, before authorities could arrest him in 2010, Tommy Swint died by suicide. He is still considered a suspect in Niqui's disappearance, and it has been theorized that Tommy Swint was a serial killer.
It sounds like it to me. I'm rather convinced by by that theory.
I mean, you don't just like strangle and beat someone to death and then like, that's it, you know. In my opinion, I feel like he continued to have all this inappropriate behavior. He had already tried things with Niqui before, and then she just happens to disappear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it sounds like because he had dated Tina before he horrifically, it sounds like it's an anger thing over rejection. Like I'm not sure if Tina ended the relationship, but to me, that's a plausible explanation. Explanation. Like, he hates women and he hates being rejected. And
I couldn't find anything about like if they were actively dating at this time, but that is a big theory, is that Tommy Swint really does not like rejection, and he's grown this like strong hatred towards women. And basically, when they try to tell him no, he does stuff like this.
Yeah, that's horrific. That's horrific for both these women's families too. You know, it seems like there's a little bit of closure. Like we kind of think we know what happened, but for him to then take his own life and there's no justice is horrific.
Yeah. Tommy Swint also sent Niqui lingerie as a gift at her wedding shower. So he is just a very sick, inappropriate, dangerous individual. And also, fun fact, it turns out that he lived in that same apartment complex that Niqui's ex did, where her car was found.
Okay, that was my question. Is I was going to say, did they know he lived there and they were like trying to dump the car to frame him? What a weird coincidence that they lived in the same apartment complex. But Oh my God.
It is weird though, because like they had already previously searched that area and her car wasn't there. And then like 4 months later it was found. So I want to know where the car was.
Right.
You
They
know,
must have been storing it somewhere.
yeah. And obviously like Niqui has never been found. So the other big question is, where the hell is her body?
Oh my God. I honestly got so caught up in the theory, like the people. Oh my God, that's just and he killed himself. So
right.
Darlene, where are you at? We need
I couldn't find anything else about her, but yeah, I feel like if there's any chance of this being solved, Darlene has to talk. So a couple other things just to wrap this up. So after her mother's disappearance, Niqui's daughter Peyton moved in with her grandmother, and she remained very close with her stepfather Bobby until his death. She has always believed that Bobby was innocent. Peyton also says that Bobby partially blames himself for Niqui disappearing, saying that maybe if he had treated her better, she would still be here. So I don't know. It's like he's trying to, I don't know. He's processing.
He's feeling some guilt. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, I just found the most incredible Mother's Day gift. It's called Goldbelly. Goldbelly is this amazing site where you can get the most iconic foods from restaurants all across the U.S., shipped anywhere in the country for free in time for Mother's Day. We're talking cakes from Ina Garden and Martha Stewart, Magnolia Bakery's famous banana pudding, and New York bagel brunches. Make Mother's Day perfect with Goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code MOM. That's Goldbelly.com, promo code MOM.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50. Code listen50. Terms and conditions apply.
Peyton also lost her grandmother, Barbara, in 2020, one day before the 19th anniversary of Niqui's disappearance, and Barbara was incredibly active in the search and the investigation for Niqui. Niqui's family has continued to search for answers over the years. There were some remains found in 2003 that investigators suspected could have been Niqui's, but the DNA results were inconclusive. Her case remains unsolved, with investigators and loved ones still hoping for new leads that could bring closure. And some really recent updates: Detective Mike Wright took on Niqui's case in 2022. There have been several more searches since then in the wooded areas of Richmond. They also got Tommy Swin's old computer in 2024. And they're not sure if they're going to be able to get anything off of it because so much time has passed, but they're going to try.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And something that I think is good for everybody to know is that Michelle, Niqui's sister, started working with the Doc Ellis Foundation. And this is a nonprofit focused on missing persons of color. Michelle is now the foundation's director and outreach coordinator.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. You hear that so often in these stories of family members really taking the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to you, your loved one going missing or your loved one being murdered, and turning it into like a drive and a motivation to help other families so they don't have to experience what you've been through. And it's amazing. And I don't know that I would be strong enough or resilient enough to do that kind of work after experiencing something like that.
Right. Yeah. It's incredibly inspiring. And she has been able to help a lot of people. She has been able to bring people of color home alive or deceased, at least giving the family some closure. And she is still hopeful that one day they will bring Niqui home too, whether it be dead or alive. Niqui would be in her 50s today, and anyone with information, Darlene, about Niqui's disappearance is asked to call the Richmond Police Department at 765-983-7247. This information will also be in the show notes. And if you want to learn more about this case, there's also a podcast called Missing Niqui McCown, and it goes into a lot more detail. So I will put that in the show notes as well.
Oh, I'm definitely going to check that out.
So that, everybody, is the case of the unsolved disappearance of Niqui McCown.
My heart breaks for that family. And I do want to say apologies to Bobby for saying your behavior was sus. I think sometimes we're all different people, and some things sounds odd to one person and whatever. I'm very glad to hear that there was enough evidence to point elsewhere, because I think, otherwise this story could have gone in a different direction that was incorrect. So I'm glad to hear that. I guess the last thing I would like to say is the biggest, most giant fuck you to Darlene for not coming forward and saying what has happened to this woman and leaving this family in the torturous limbo of not knowing.
Right.
Because I have a feeling Darlene knows.
Yeah, because it's not a situation anymore where you could say, oh, maybe she is in fear of her own life because Tommy Swint is this very dangerous individual. No, Tommy Swint is dead. So, I don't know where Darlene is, but I'm assuming that she is still alive. And yeah, I feel like if there is any chance of this case getting solved, she has to talk. So I am a little bit encouraged that so much movement very recently has started. Like, someone else has taken over the case. They just got the computer a year ago. It's also very concerning that there is a chance that Tommy Swint is a serial killer. So I feel like there's going to be a lot more developments in all of. I just have a feeling that there's going to be more stuff that comes out about Tommy. And there's probably a situation where women missing in Ohio, specifically Dayton, need to be exhumed. They need to be looking at DNA and comparing it to him because, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great. Like I said, I'm from Ohio. So, and I've never heard Tommy Swint's name. I've never heard of Niqui's case. And yeah, I'm interested to see what comes out of it, especially if they can get information off of his computer. I have a feeling that is going to give them a lot of information.
Absolutely.
That's great to hear. Well, thank you so much for doing this. For the listeners, first of all, for the YouTube watchers, I want to apologize because I forgot you did YouTube. So I have I'm moving furniture right now. I have the most random background of all time.
It's okay.
Sorry for that. But for the listeners, Kadra and I have been trying to set this up probably for at least over a month now. And then we keep, she has something pop up. I have something pop up. Then last weekend I messed it up. And so I'm so glad we finally got to sit down and do this. Cause
me too.
Even though these are horrific stories, these are stories that need to be told continuously until these families get some answers. And I really enjoyed hearing your story and chatting with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And before I forget, I also would love to plug Kelsey for a second and all the amazing work they do over at A Trial by Podcast. They do such a good job. Kelsey, I was so unbelievably impressed at the incredibly hard work and thorough coverage you did on the JonBenet Ramsey case. I am looking at it right now for Patreon, and I'm blown away.
Thank you. It was a nightmare. It was 5 weeks of hell. We did 6 hours, I think, of coverage on JonBenet Ramsey. And I am still talk about a perplexing mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel I just feel more confused after finding all of this information. I think it needs to be talked about. Obviously, it's one of the most talked about cases of all time. And there are a lot of other cases that need attention. But, this little girl's case is still unsolved. And yeah, it was I wish you the best of luck because it is a doozy to cover. There's just so much info out there.
Yeah, I'm doing it for Patreon, and I'm doing the, which I know there's a lot of mixed opinions about this documentary, but I'm doing kind of like a documentary recap on the Netflix doc. And then I'm also going to add some other sources in and talk about my opinions and theories more in the third episode, because it's going to be a 3-parter. But because I know a lot of my listeners really like the true crime deep dives that I do. If you guys want another true crime deep dive, I highly recommend go listen to a Trial by Podcast coverage of JonBenet Ramsey and go check them out. Kelsey, do you want to talk about your show for a minute?
Yeah, so we do. So basically, I have a co-host named Emily. She was not able to make it today, but I am usually the storyteller, and we call Emily the bringer of the vibes. So Emily, she might be familiar with some of the more popular cases. Like, of course, she knows some of the JonBenet Ramsey case. She's seen the documentaries. But for the most part, she comes in blindly. She doesn't even know this, like what case we're going to cover that day. So really, she's the one that I feel like she's speaking for the listeners. She's asking the questions that maybe the listeners have while I'm telling the story. And she's like, we get a lot of comments that people are like, Emily literally says exactly what I'm thinking in my head as I'm hearing the story. So I think we have a good time with it when appropriate, in the beginning of the show and stuff. But I really think you guys will enjoy. And we are kind of known for rambling on and for deep dives and long episodes, which I think is some people's jam. Some people it's not. Like JonBenet Ramsey, we did, I think, 3 episodes on. I think our longest case we ever covered was the murder of Dan Markel. We did 4 episodes on because it is just such a crazy, twisty, turny, wild story. And there is a trial upcoming in that case later this summer. So I think we're going to add more episodes to that. But yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy Emily as well. So yeah, you can find us wherever you get your podcast, A Trial by Podcast. The A in the beginning is very important because there is another like court podcast that's just Trial by Podcast. We didn't realize when we picked the name.
Oh, man.
But yeah, and then you can find us on social media at A Trial by Podcast as well.
Perfect.
Kadra, where can our listeners find you?
Yes. So you can find me anywhere podcasts are available, just like how you're listening to a Trial by Podcast. I am on really any and every podcast platform at Perplexity, a mystery podcast. And you do want to search it that way. Perplexity, a mystery podcast. I've been told by people if you just type in Perplexity, sometimes it doesn't come up. I'm also on YouTube. So if that's more your jam, I do like a full video format with pictures and everything. Read from a teleprompter, so it's like a good professional style, so you can go check that out. And I would love to have you. And if you do listen to my show and enjoy it, I would love if you tell me where you're coming from. Tell me that a Trial by Podcast sent you. That way I can thank Kelsey and Emily.
Awesome. Well, and by the way, her YouTube videos are fantastic. They're so well done. Me and Emily have been trying to implement video, and it is like the bane of my existence. Like all of the tech and the cords and the wires. And as you can tell, this is where we normally record. Normally I don't have random shelving behind me, but it's just like, I'm like, I need to like do something with the light. So Kadra, I'm going to call you at some point for your professional assistance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have helped a couple people go to YouTube in like the last couple of months actually. And I'm happy to help because it is not easy to do up front, but
yeah, you think it's going to be so simple, and I swear it's not, but she does a fantastic job. You guys will really enjoy it. So,
well, thank you.
Well, I really enjoyed doing this with you. So I'm so glad we were able to make it work. And I'm sure that all the listeners enjoyed as well.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would love it so much if you continue to follow along. If you are watching on YouTube, I would love if you hit the subscribe button, like this video, drop a comment down below. I would love to hear your theories on what happened to Niqui McCown and Brian Shaffer. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a comment on this exact episode as well, letting me know your thoughts. And if you have not done so yet, please leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. That really, really helps. If you would really like to support the show, get early and ad-free episodes, and unlock tons and tons of bonus content, including the JonBenet Ramsey coverage I'm working on right now, you can go check out patreon.com/Perplexity Mystery Podcast. And just another reminder to check out A Trial by Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You all are amazing. I hope you have a great week. Please stay safe, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Oh my God, masterclass on the outro as well. And with that, court is adjourned. Bye.
Bye.
Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.